Welcome to the Crack On podcast, hosted by me, John Saunders. Crack On!
Hey guys, and welcome to another edition of the Crack On podcast. And today, very, very lucky to have the founder of MyLifeData, Jason Dunlop, to join me today. Jason, how's tricks?
Hey John, great to see you. Thanks for this opportunity. Lovely day in Wales. Let's crack on and see where this journey takes us, shall we?
Yeah, absolutely, mate. Absolutely. Do you know what? I've interviewed a lot of people from Wales. Every time I've been on a call with them, they've got better weather than us down here.
Yeah.
Nine times out of 10, mate, the weather down here is normally better, to be fair. But so it's nice up there today, is it?
Yeah, it's not a bad day. It's probably a bit warmer with you than it is up here, but that South Coast versus South Wales there is a difference, isn't there?
Yeah, there is. I suppose that one thing we spoke about offline, which should be quite a good one to get into, is do you want to explain to the listeners where you've just come from and what you've just done?
Yes. So my life is in sort of three folds. Obviously, family man first, and second layer is in terms of my work, which is around personal data, and I'm the founder of MyLifeData and the co-founder of Global Sports. And I suppose the piece that I do outside of that is the RNLI. So I'm a member of the RNLI. I run the RNLI in Penarth. I'm the lifeboat operations manager. And you're quite right, John. Yeah, 10 to 7 this morning. We had pages went off. We've just gone and done a job with a fishing boat, and it's then time to put Zoom back on and to turn back into a data technologist again. It's a bit like being Mr. Ben sometimes. Change your clothes, go and be something else.
Absolutely, and I know firsthand actually, because the Penarth, I know a load of guys that are in that team within. But there's been a lot of what's been great about that is the RNLI's got its own program, hasn't it? There's a program on I think BBC One or BBC Two. And it gives you a real insight. I watched one the other day back with regards to the north. It was in Scotland, and no, it was Ireland, and they were saying that obviously today no one will be out today, and then bang, they had a call. It was the worst winds. It was a storm coming in, and this boat had thought that it was getting there, but it was going to get there a day before this storm was going to come in, and got sort of lost. And I was just sat there thinking, wow, those people are doing it voluntarily, putting their life at risk. Amazing.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think there's volunteering, and then there's believing in something. And I manage the station now. I was on the boat for 18 years, but it takes a real level of belief to take a boat into the dark in the middle of a storm to someone you don't know, quite often to not even know where they are, and to try and make a difference and make a plan. And the RNLI is built on a mantra that with courage anything is possible.
I love that.
And I think it's so valid to our daily lives, John.
I totally agree, mate. I totally agree. And I bet there's been all sorts of circumstances. I get a snippet of it. I know a couple of guys down here actually. Obviously, with Beachy Head down the way, they're very busy in where they are. And but ultimately, I totally agree with you. I think looking at like people like yourself that put their time and effort into it. You don't know whether, in the nicest way, you don't know whether you're going to come back or not every time you go out, because it could be. I bet it's
It's a really interesting one. I remember when I was at the university, we had a job one morning, and unfortunately, it didn't go well. The guy involved in the shout died, and so I was about an hour late for work, and I tipped up at work, and my PA said, Jace, morning, Jace, how are you? And I was like, yeah, no, I'm fine. She said the car park barrier is not working, and I was like, okay, that's fine. She said, and all the photocopiers are down. And I was like, no, that's all right. That's all right. Yeah. She said, here's your cup of tea. Your first meeting's in 20 minutes. And then I went. I just sat down.
Yeah.
And she came in about 5 minutes later. She said, so why were you late this morning? What was the job? I said, oh, it was a boat capsized. Unfortunately, the guy didn't make it. And you could just hear the silence.
Yeah.
And she said, maybe the car park barrier doesn't matter that much, does it? And the printers don't really matter either, do they? And I tell that story quite often because I think in our lives we're busy, and at the moment is a great example of what's going on in the world.
Yeah.
And actually, when you have an ability to understand how fragile life really is, you can look at it in a really different perspective.
Yeah,
And
you know what, mate? I think that's a Monday for me. For everyone, it is a Monday, and that's a Monday morning get yourself together job, because
it is.
that's a like, I'm sat here thinking, wow, that is exactly the perspective I think everyone needs to have as well when we are looking at this. And but I think the big thing for me with people like yourself, you put others first, and you put others first. How long have you been doing this now, Jace?
Well, about 18, 19 years.
Wow. So for 18, 19 years, you put other people first every time. And from someone that does a bit for charity, I would say I only dip my toe in compared to other people. That is an amazing, amazing feat, mate. So congratulations with that. And well done.
No. I don't think any of us involved do this for any other reason that we get to be part of a really good team.
Yeah.
Actually,
I was going
the
to talk
team
through
is
that. So talk through the team you've got, and sort of, So I take it what I got from that, that one episode I watched last week, and that's what I knew I was talking to you. So I watched it again.
Yeah.
Was that you had to choose between 12 people, you had to choose 6 to go out with.
Yeah.
I think is that happen? Does that happen with you guys, or how does that work?
Yeah. Every time, really. All 30 crew get paged.
Right.
Some of them won't be able to come from work, and so you'll end up normally with 15 people or so.
Yeah.
And then the helm and the launch authority will say, well, I'll take you. We've got such a diverse set of skills on the crew. So we've got paramedics, we've got advanced paramedics on heart,
Yeah.
police officers, we've got data technologists, we've got event managers. And so you can look at any specific job. So job before last was a fisherman who'd fallen over and broke his shoulder. So it's quite clear on that job that, well, I've got 2 paramedics here. You 2 are going.
So you assess the job, assess the skill base that's needed. Again, very relative to the working life.
Oh, so it's really interesting. The concept of dynamic risk assessment, I think, is really interesting. And everybody in life thinks about risk assessment as filling a form out and doing all those things.
Yeah.
But actually, we're all dynamically assessing things all the time. So crossing the road, business decisions, John. If I could take one lesson from my R&I world and apply it to work, the ability to stand still, stop, gather information, and then make it. Just that couple of seconds of stopping can make a lifetime of difference. And the guys that I train and work with, we train them to do that because they have to make go, no go decisions. Well, in business, you have to make go, no go decisions. Are we going to do that? Are we going to do this? I'm in a rush to make a decision. Well, what is the rush? Just give yourself a bit of time. Make sure you've analysed anything. You might even ask a few people a few questions. What would you do? What would you do? Right, we're going to do this, and then you drive forward and you do it. And that's the whole thing about working with emergency services, is that it's the drive forward that's the important bit. We're going to go and do that. We've got a plan. We've made a plan, and we're now going to do it.
And that is, I take it that is decision making at its best. And like you say, we'll come to the book that we're both reading very, very soon. But I've got on one of my sections to go. But Think and Grow Rich is, there's lots of sections in that book about the best people in this world are the ones that, like the Fords of this world, make decisions on the cuff, but then stick with them strong. And ultimately, when you're out in that boat and you've made that call, it's the call that's been made. It's very hard 3-4 miles out to sea to change your decision.
Yeah. So it's very interesting, John. I mean, the R&I things are an interesting one. I was involved in a team about 5 years ago that were involved in a rescue in Devon, a flood rescue in Devon.
Right.
And the team on that team won Pride of Britain for being involved in that activity. Brilliant. And the scenario was a woman who was clinging to a tree in the middle of a flooded river. And it was 12 o'clock at night. And the river was flowing, 15 times the level that it should have done. And we arrived, and it was a simple, this lady's going to die if
Yeah.
we don't do something. And we could actually hear her screaming. So
Wow.
that was the scenario that we faced. And we all stood in a huddle and said, do you think we can do this? And the discussion was as simple as that.
All
And
right.
we all said, yeah, let's go and do it. And you know, that rescue was effective. Don't get me wrong, we were very lucky, right?
Yeah.
Everything went well for us, and we rescued the woman, and you know, it's now you know, a point of history and media and all that sort of stuff. But actually, that bringing a group of people together, making a collective decision, deciding that we've all got the skills to go and do it,
Yeah.
and then saying go and do it as a team,
Yeah.
immensely powerful, John.
Yeah.
Immensely, because you're not on your own, are you? You're
No.
not there saying, what do I do? You
Yeah.
know, and the concept of the mastermind, you know,
Yeah.
it's the mastermind in real time, very fast, but with highly trained people.
Yeah.
And I think, you know, that's what true leadership and decision is about. And also, you know, you can do your downside management. You can say, well, you know, we could die if we do this.
Yeah. Yeah.
But actually, yeah, we all accept that. Right, let's go and make a difference. And
Yeah.
and I think in business, you know, I look at my failures in business, John,
Yeah.
and all the things I've learned from, and every time that I've had a major learning episode, when I've reflected on it, it's because I didn't move forwards. I stood still either because I didn't understand the situation,
Yeah.
or I thought I couldn't do it. And actually, I don't think there's anything we can't do. You know, you look at people who recover from major illness, you look at people who lead major businesses. What's the single point that makes them succeed? It's
Yeah.
that element to go and go.
Yeah.
Right, I am going to live. I am gonna, you know, that the guy who was in the racing car accident at the weekend.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
what we gonna do?
Yeah.
He decided he needed to get out.
Yeah.
His body, if you listen to his interview, his body and his brain said, you need to sit here, you
Yeah.
know? And something clicked and he thought, I'll get out another way, and out he went.
There you
That's
go.
that fight and flee element, isn't
Yeah.
it? And it's
Totally agree with you, mate. I
fascinating.
mean, I've got an example of that, a real life one at the moment, actually. That it's very it's sad, but it has got a really nice undertone to it. Is that, you know, my wife's uncle isn't very well. He got cancer, unfortunately, 2.5 years ago. Diagnosed cancer 2.5 years ago, but he got given 6 months to live, and he's actually gone into hospital now, and he's not very well. But 2.5 years later, he didn't take any medicine. All he said to himself is, "I am not going anywhere, and I'm not ready to go yet." 2.5 years later, he got 2 years in essence for free, you know, and that is an example. I mean, don't get me wrong, he's a real, such a gentleman. You just want to cuddle him, but he was strong. He understood what he wanted, and he went and got it, and he's got an extra 2 years to live. And what an amazing place to be.
Yeah, and I have to say, John, that's one thing that I absolutely believe in. You know,
Yeah.
there's a book that I've read that talks about the mental chemist, the fact that if we believe enough in what we need to put right, it's all there. And you know, what did we do when we got injured before there were pharmacies, John?
Oh
You
yeah,
know,
exactly.
we just all didn't we still didn't cuddle up and die, did we?
Oh,
We still had to go and catch the next lion or whatever. So
yeah.
the body and the brain is far more advanced than we ever give it credit for,
Yeah,
and we only use 5% of it. So you know,
yeah.
it's about picking it up and driving it forwards, I think.
Yeah, look, I totally agree with you, mate. I think there's so many examples of that, and that's why I was looking forward to meeting you. So, you know, having this chance to do the podcast, because I know we're very similar on our outlooks on life with regards to that, and
Yeah.
what you do put out there. You know, I remember when I did lose 29 pound place, and we met after that, and you know, I remember you saying to me, you know, you will get whatever you put out in this world, and at the time I was putting negative vibes out, but ultimately, over the last 3 years. I'm gathering momentum, but ultimately putting out positive vibes. And I've always put out positive vibes, same as yourself. And you get good things happen, good when you put positive out.
I totally agree, and I think the big learning for me has been the phrase, what's the worst thing that could happen?
Yeah.
And it's so true, isn't it? You know,
True, it's true.
particularly in business, you know,
Yeah.
and I worked in the public sector for a long time.
Yeah.
And I always decided when I worked in the public sector that if things didn't go so well, I'd be quite happy working in Tesco's.
Yeah.
And it made life so much easier for me because I'd
Yeah.
go into a meeting with someone who wanted to have some sort of power control situation. And I
Yeah.
genuinely sit there and think, at some point, I can tell this person to get stuffed.
Yeah. Yeah.
And actually, it's the most powerful self-motivating term because you
Yeah.
then only have to take so much, and you can say, "Sorry, I'm done,"
Yeah.
and it just moves that situation on totally. And you know, whether it's with investors, whether it's with enforcement organizations,
Yeah.
whatever, if you sit there and say, I get it, what's the worst thing we think that could happen,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
and you drive through it, don't you?
I agree. I think there's interestingly, we were speaking a bit offline about our industry generally, as in the leisure industry, and there's a bit within the not so much my company generally, but people talking to, if I make this as general as it can be, talking to a few colleagues of mine and friends of mine that are in the industry, that the employers are sort of using the sort of position and the situation as a bit of a, not scaremongering, but ultimately you're lucky to have a job. You're lucky to be employed, so stick with it. And ultimately, for me, I agree totally with you. I think the background, the beauty of where I've come from and where we've is once you've had your own business, so you get the understanding that actually I can just walk into Domino's and drive it. I do that on weekends. I do it. I'm a driver for pizzas. Cool. And someone said to me the other day, well, why are you doing that for? I said, well, for one, I enjoy being out and doing some work. But two, I've got no ego. I got no ego. I'll do anything I've got to do to make sure my wife and my kids are safe and sound. And I actually really enjoy it. And I love looking at the franchise model. So I've got to enjoy it.
Well, you know, one of the interesting things, I've got a very good friend of mine, John, who is a multi millionaire. Yeah. Gazillions. And he's an Uber driver. He's an Uber driver.
Wow.
And it's really funny. And like, you know, he drives his Uber. Nobody knows.
No.
Yeah. Nobody knows. And
so what would be his why? Out of interest, what would be his why?
So he likes meeting people.
Yeah.
He likes chatting to people.
Yeah.
And he likes chatting to real people who don't have an agenda.
Yeah.
Because when he becomes a multi-millionaire, everybody wants something.
Yeah.
When he becomes a taxi driver, nobody does.
Yeah.
And it's absolutely fascinating. So, you know, he said he had some guy get in his car the other day and he said, you know, well, I'm a investment banker. And he was like, oh, that's incredible. That's incredible. What, you know, what do you earn? Oh, hundreds of thousands.
Yeah.
Oh, that's really impressive, you know? And you know, there's anything wrong with investment bankers.
Absolutely, there's nothing
wrong. But actually, we never know who we're talking to, do we? And you never know somebody's story.
Yeah.
And it's actually only when you start to peel the layers of people do you understand, you know, the complexity and the interest of them. And, you know, I mean, I'm a technologist in life, as you know.
Yeah.
But I still live by the mantra: people, process, technology. Everything starts with people.
Yeah.
And you know, if you like people, find people interesting, the rest of it's a bit of a journey, isn't it? Really.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know?
I totally agree. And the one thing that, going back to my industry, that I've been at I see my 22 years in this industry as just amazing, just platforming me in order to carry on, because it's allowed anyone that's in my industry. It's a people game. If you're not in that people game, then like I would be a massive advocate. Anyone who's 18 thinking about what should I do, go and be a bartender. Get in that leisure industry. Get yourself in a position where, because it's all about the people. If you don't look after those people and look after your own people, you're in trouble, mate. So totally and utterly agree with that. I love that. I just wrote it down. People, process, technology. Got it. Love that. Love that.
No, it's really good. Really interesting.
So
Really
moving on, tell us a bit about where it all started then for you. You mentioned about going from the public sector into the private sector. Give the listeners a bit of an overview of life. How did you get to here now?
So I suppose really life, started a bit earlier for me. I wasn't the most successful person at school.
Right.
The education system didn't really work for me.
Yeah.
So I didn't find out until I was 14 that I was dyslexic.
Right.
So my spelling is very special, John.
So you joined the club of Richard Branson then?
Yeah, totally. And it's interesting. I now have a son who's dyslexic.
Right.
And I say to him, it's one of the biggest skills that you can have. And you can see him looking at me going, Dad, what the hell are you talking about?
Yeah, what do you mean?
And obviously it just means that your brain focuses on some different things.
Yeah.
But because of that focus, you'll be very strong in it. So school didn't go so well, left school, went to be an international forwarder. Really funny story. I used to move stuff around the world, and one morning, this guy walked into the office in a lovely suit, and I was just the office junior. And he said, "Oh, I've come to see the boss." And I was like, "Okay." I said, "Can I ask you your name?" And you could see he was just a little bit surprised.
Yeah.
He said, "Oh, my name's George Davis." And I was like, "Okay, yeah. Well, do you want a cup of coffee?" And sat him down.
Yeah.
Of course, I hadn't realised who George Davis was,
Yeah.
the owner of Next.
Right.
And,
Yeah.
so I was like, right, okay. So got him a cup of coffee, we sit down, and I said to him, so what have you done this week? Because that's my general life. Anyway, we got chatting, and eventually my boss arrived, and he looked absolutely horrified that I was talking to this guy. Yeah. And about 30 years later, I ended up at a lunch with the Israeli ambassador
Wow.
when I was at the university, and he was there to do some talks. So I just had lunch with him beforehand, and I said to him, "So how's your week been?" And he said, "Oh, I've had quite a week this week. Monday I was in the US." I was like, "Oh, okay." He said, "Yeah, I had lunch in the Oval Office with President Obama." I said,
Brilliant.
"Oh, you've done really well then, haven't you? Obama on Monday, Dunlop on Thursday." And it was he was
hashtag there.
yeah, he was a really interesting guy actually. Obviously,
Very well.
his politics were in a very different place, and
Yeah.
we can all have a view on the country and what it does.
Yeah.
But he was an academic, and I said to him, "So what are you here to talk about?" He said, "Oh, I'm here to talk about my thinking on the 3 lines of decision making."
Right.
And I said, "All right, just tell me about that."
Yeah.
He said, "Oh, well, when you do a job like mine, when you're an international ambassador," he said, "I'll go and I'll talk to another country and I'll make a deal." And I was like, "Right, okay." He said, "And then I'll take that back to my cabinet." He said, "And I'll explain the deal to the cabinet. And the cabinet will always say, 'Oh, what a load of rubbish.
Yeah.
There's no way we're signing up to that.'" And he said, "So you then have to influence those people and
Yeah.
bring them on board with your ideas." He said, "And then once you've influenced them, you've got to take it to the population. So you've
Right.
got to go to the population." So he said, "So people often miss the need to understand all of the other stakeholders
Yeah.
and their ability to persuade." And I put that to business. You're there running a business, you go and sell something, you go back to your co-owners and they go, "Well, I'd do it differently." And then you go to your staff and you say to your staff, "Listen, guys, this is what we're doing." And
Yeah.
everybody's got a different idea on what you're doing. And just how through life all of these things have been massive lessons,
Yeah.
is incredibly important. So yeah, so basically I was a forwarder. I quit that job.
Talk us through just for someone like me, what is a forwarder? Because I'm
So
intrigued by it.
so that's someone who arranges goods to move around the world.
Right. Okay.
So buys space on ships, on planes,
Right. Okay.
deals with all. So it's quite tradey actually, because you've got to buy and sell space.
Especially at the moment with where we are with things, everything's
Yeah, absolutely.
and world we live in.
So I got a bit jacked off with that, and I was only 20 years old, but I had my my car and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
So I quit that to be a canoeing instructor in the Brecon Beacons.
Brilliant.
Uh,
Love that.
and
My dad's a canoeing instructor.
is he?
Yeah. Loves it.
So I end up in the Brecon Beacons working for an outdoor activity centre called PGL Adventure. All the kids go on holidays there.
Yeah.
And very lucky again, right place, right time. And end up, helping work on an act of parliament and some legislation to protect children in outdoor activity centres.
Yeah.
And then I got headhunted to go and work at a university, and that was just bizarre, really. So I'd never been to university, never done any of that stuff. Went to work in a students' union, and just a bizarre world, really, higher education. And realised that because I wasn't an academic, I needed to find a way to influence and describe. And the vice chancellor who was at Portsmouth University said, "You need to use data, Jace." So I started building data sets about the arguments that are, and it turned out to be quite successful, really, because everybody else did what they believed, and I did what the data said. So there's a famous quote by Edward Deming that says, "In God I believe, all others bring data," and I followed that. So everybody would be saying, "Well, it's snowed a lot this month," so and I'd say, "No, it actually hasn't snowed that much at all. We've only had one day of snow, so let's crack on, shall we?" And it's just that difference between perception and reality. And then I ended up going to Cardiff and doing the same thing at Cardiff, which I think is where we first met.
Yeah.
And then in 2012, I had a little heart attack.
Oh wow.
And only a little one, but because of my lifeboat in life, I knew what was going on.
Yeah.
And that's a life-changing event. That sort of says to you, let's look at this and see where we're going. And so I'd always wanted to own my own business and do my own thing. And so I had 3 months where I didn't pick a mobile phone up. I didn't do anything with work, and I just had an opportunity to plan.
Yeah.
And I planned really carefully, and then went to work and realised that actually the thing that the heart attack did for me was it meant I couldn't really deal with bullshit anymore. John.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
people walk into my office and say, "Oh, this is wrong. These people aren't very good." And I'd sit there, whereas before I might have agreed and said, "Oh, this is the strategy." I just sat there and thought, "This is absolute bollocks, really." And this is a load of rubbish. That you haven't spoken to that person. You haven't given them a chance.
Yeah.
I don't agree. Don't agree anymore. The rules are different. And I very quickly realised that I couldn't work in the organisation that I was in. My mindset,
A round peg in a square hole, huh?
yeah, and also, because you've been in one of those life-changing situations, you look at the world in a very different way. You say, "Well, what is the worst thing that can happen?"
A lot of people now are in that position where they've had 8-9 months potentially, where there's been, there are life-changing things happening at the moment. And then and the last 8 months, I would have thought there's a lot of people sat in those same. So I'm really interested on how that just came about. Was it, what happened then? Did you just go in and off you went, or was there a day that you
Yeah. So no, I went in. As I say, I went into the office. This member of staff came in and said, "Oh, X department's crap. You need to do this, this, and this." And I just sat there, and then the guy who was my liaison officer walked in afterwards, and I said, "I'm done." And he was like, "What do you mean?" I said, I can't do this. I was on 6 months' notice. I'll employ a replacement, and I'll sort everything out. I'll do a 5-year plan. I'm off." And that's what we did. And then I started a business. So I started my own data business then called Critical Friend. And I started to understand the power of data and the power of personal data. And I met a guy who's a technologist, a South African guy, and we went on a journey to do some quite exciting things. Met some great people. We ended up developing an app for the fertility industry. which the Times called Order a Daddy. And then that business was subject to sort of a bit of a reverse takeover, really. We lost the business. And it was really my first point of failure, the first time where I thought, I failed. And that was a really difficult time.
Yeah.
And I I went to that whole grief curve scenario. Don't know if you're familiar with the grief curve, but
Yeah.
I went through every part of that phase on that journey.
Yeah.
And then I started thinking about the things that I'd learned. So I went back to The Secret and thought, no, there is a greater purpose here. I need to be focusing on what's positive.
Yeah.
And then I started MyLifeData. And then I got headhunted to go and work in the city in an AIM listed business and helping buy and sell companies in the
Yeah.
city.
Brilliant.
And again, my confidence lifts. You start to do something different, and
Yeah.
I'd never worked in the city before, and that was a real eye opener. Real interesting world of money, really.
Yeah, it is. I mean, I was lucky enough to be there for 6 months when I was I had a sabbatical I say a sabbatical, it was a job. We went to London, then we came out. But I ran a venue called Abacus in the city in the Mile Square. A very
Yeah.
interesting atmosphere, isn't it? It's a great environment, actually. If
Oh, it is, and it's a world with its own community
yeah,
and its own rules, and you are either in it or you're not,
100%.
and it's
From a
and,
licensing point of view, there's a police just for the city, just for the
yeah,
Mile Square. So
yeah,
it's literally ran by itself, isn't it?
yeah. It's very interesting,
Yeah,
very interesting. So yeah, did that, helped them grow quite considerably as part of a team.
yeah.
And then the chairman decided he wanted the business to go slightly different direction. So I then left again and went back to MyLifeData because that's what I've worked on for the best part of my life. And then
What is MyLifeData? What is the concept behind it? And obviously, it's data driven.
so when I was sat in my hospital bed all
Yeah,
those years ago, it's 2012. One of the things that I thought about was that I need to be able to show my son's doctors what happened to me,
right.
because it might be hereditary and he might need that data.
Yeah,
So I thought that was a really useful thing to be able to do. So I said to the consultant, I'd like a copy of the data on my heart attack for my family. And he was like, you can't have it. I said, well, what do you mean? Can't have it. He said,
right.
no, the data doesn't belong to you. And I was like,
Mm,
you really sure about that? And he
yeah,
was like, no, I am. And I was like, okay. And I suppose because I had so much time to think about it, I got myself into a little bit of a justice space and thought, this is just wrong.
yeah,
Actually, I want to use my experience through life
yeah.
to help others. And that's what data is about. Data is about how it's used. Well. So it really drove me on a journey of personal data. So MyLifeData is about a concept that says I own my life's data, and I own who uses it, I own who processes it, I own who makes money out of it, and
Mm.
those people who make money out of it need to pay me for it as well. And so anybody who joins MyLifeData,
Yeah,
go on the journey with me that says Google owe me money for the data on me that they use. Facebook, the same.
yeah,
Companies like Experian may also be the same. And to be honest, John, until quite recently, I was sat in a world as a absolute madman. People thought, Jace, what are you talking about?
yeah,
Who's going to pay for data? We get Facebook for free, so why would Facebook pay us?
yeah,
And you start to understand the economics behind modern technology, and obviously doing the work that I do, I understand this.
yeah.
So You know, the hundreds of billions of pounds that is made from you and I's data, and
Yeah.
actually understanding how much we are tracked, and there is no way around it. You know, this conversation over Zoom,
Yeah.
probably. The fact that we're sat in the rooms that we're sat, tracked by our phones, definitely.
Yes. Yes.
Uh, who we've spoken to today, what we've done, the fact I've been to the lifeboat station and back, all of that is one level of data.
Yeah.
And that's how people see it. You then put all of the AI that exists on top of that,
Yeah.
which is the ability to link all of that data together. And you start to understand then how that technology draws us into behavior that is even more. So, you know, why does my phone ping when I've got a message? It pings because our brains have been trained to recognize that that's a risk or an opportunity.
Yeah.
And so we'll always respond to it. And likes and all of those elements that drive activity, people can say, well, it's driving interest. It's actually driving money.
Yeah.
And our data is used in a very, you know, different way. So one side of MyLifeData is about going to large companies and saying, you need to pay us if you want to use our data. And believe it or not, there's that cog is turning. That world
I mean,
will come very soon.
I'm literally just sat here, and well, I understand, and anyone will understand that data is what's driving this world. The most precious thing at the moment is data. And when you just said about tracking, you know, I can't get the data that actually belongs to me. It totally makes sense. Why? And there's so many people out there that don't check into Facebook and all those technology bases because of that reason. They don't want that to be the case. And I suppose that one of the interesting bits is when, you know, the pandemic and how it spread and the technology over in the Eastern world, the advancement of that and the way they've been able to get the track and trace to a point of, because they allow the state to sort of let them be tracked. That's got it's an interesting, you know, I just find that very interesting that actually that's driven the pandemic down, but it's data driven, isn't it?
I think you'll find if you talk to most technologists about this whole COVID scenario,
Yeah.
you know, the concept of track and trace is just a little bit of you know, smoke and mirrors in
Mirrors,
reality.
yeah.
You know, if you think about every time you use a mobile phone, you are tracked within 3 meters roughly.
Yeah.
You know, and probably with some of the technologies available, even more. You know, the concept that the governments or the technology companies, you know, need to develop something special to find out where we all are and who we're next to
Yeah.
is just a little bit of a joke, really,
Yeah,
John.
no, I agree.
To be fair, you know, if you think about it, if you're walking down the street and you say, "I need to know where the nearest pizzeria is," they can find where the nearest pizzeria is. You
Yeah.
can bet their ass they know who stood next to you.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so it just becomes a little bit smoke and mirrors, really, you
Yeah.
know. And
And someone who knows a lot about it, who knows a lot more than I do, a
yeah.
scary future or a future with opportunity?
So it's interesting, isn't it? I suppose it depends on where you think. I got contacted by a bloke once who said, "I want not to be able to be tracked," and I said to him, "No, we can do that. We can
Yeah.
do that." I said, "Where do you live?" He said, "Oh, I live on the south coast." I
Yeah.
said, "Right. Do you have a car?" "Yeah." So do you want to be able to drive after you don't want to be tracked or not? And he was like, "Well, of course I do." I said, "Right, okay." I said, "Well, how many ANPR cameras are there around where you live?" He said, "Oh, right, okay." I said, "And do you have a GPS in your car?" And he was like, "Yeah, of course I do." I said, "Right, and do you have a mobile phone in your car?" "Yeah." I said, "Right, okay. So you're tracked everywhere that you go." I said, "Well, actually, what type of car do you have?" He said, "Oh, I've got a brand new X, Y, and Z." And I looked it up. I said, "Oh, that's got an auto dial on it. So when you have an accident, it phones the emergency services and tells the car it had an accident." He said, "Yeah, that's why I bought it. It's a really good feature." And I said, "But you don't want anybody to know where you are."
No.
I said, "And all we've talked about so far is your car, you
Yeah.
know? And if you think about the modern car, the data in the modern car tracks seat movement, driver position, mirror settings.
Yeah.
Every time you plug your phone in, it downloads all the information into your phone.
Wow.
Tire wear, engine wear, how fast you rev, drive, all of that is captured by the modern car. Yeah. And and you say to people, I just helped this guy understand his world.
The
And then I
magnitude.
said to him, do you have a mobile phone? Oh yeah, I've got a mobile phone. Are you prepared to give up your mobile phone? No.
No.
Right. Okay. So think about what do you use your mobile? Well, I log on with my mobile phone. Right. Okay. And do you want to be able to find restaurants? Yeah. So that's your location. Right. Okay. And do you want to be able to use Wi-Fi? Yeah. Okay. And so you just get people to think about
Yeah.
the data that's being collected around them and its value. And that's the point to me. But probably more important to me in the journey that I was on and still am on is that there's all that value stuff, but I then think there's a really nice piece about the end of our lives. And so you think about you and I, and you might be a little bit younger than me, John, I don't know, but I'm probably still from the last generation where in my parents' house is a box of photos for me as a child.
Yeah.
And that's where that box is. So, when my parents die, I'll just go to the house and I'll take the box, and there's me on my first go-kart, and
Yeah.
there's me in the first school race. The last 5, 6, 7 years of people born,
Yeah.
those boxes don't exist.
No.
And that data is being owned by Apple, Facebook, Google, and they've monetized those projects.
Yeah. Totally. Yeah.
So if you want MyLifeData, you want the pictures of my life, which is MyLifeData,
Yeah.
you got to find a way to find that. And when we do get to that end of life event, whether we've planned for it or not, all of our finances are far more complicated now. 50 years ago, there'd be a desk, and in the desk drawer, there'd be all the bank books and all that. Nobody's got any idea where anything is now.
No.
So the concept of pulling all of that data together, monetizing it, allowing access, preventing access, controlling access, and finding out who's stolen it, and just have to look at things like British Airways or the Marriott hotel scenarios where our data has been stolen en masse.
Yeah.
You'd know if someone had broken into your house and stolen your bank book 50 years ago. Now we've no idea. And so our thinking needs to move with the times. And, part of that people, process and technology thinking is that technology is moving at a pace that's, incredibly, incredibly quick now. And as humans, we can't keep up with it. So
where's the people in the process come in there? Are they being left behind?
well, believe me, the big tech companies understand more about people, process, and technology than others because they're actually using those in-depth human emotions to drive activity into their
trigger activity.
yeah. It's very interesting.
No. I find it fascinating. Actually, I think the bit I didn't talk to you about offline. Me and my friend, I've got a very, very good friend of mine, best of mates for a long time, and we went to sixth form together. And he went on and did maths, and I did sociology. So we used to have real good conversations. I was all about the heart and the mind, and he was all about the 0 and 1. So he wouldn't, and everything was defined by data. Whereas in my life and my world, it's all about the feeling and the feel, which is why, like I said, your MyLifeData is a fascinating world, isn't it? It's a fascinating world. And where do you think it's going to go?
Well, so companies like mine are starting to grow now.
Yeah.
So as I say, I think until about 18 months ago, I was a lone wolf in the wilderness, talking and shouting, and it's been driven quite heavily by a guy called Andrew Yang in the US who stood to be a US presidential candidate.
Oh, wow.
And he's started a project called the Data Dividend.
Right.
So his belief is that everybody in America should be able to receive a minimum payment on an annual basis for the use of their data.
Right.
And that's globally powerful.
From the big companies, from the just
Yeah.
where would that money come from? From these big boys?
Yeah, absolutely. You just, at the moment they create data and data's free to them.
Yeah.
And the con, and I call it the con, is that we're allowed to use Facebook. So it's free.
Yeah.
And I sit there and I think it's such a powerful tool. Why would Facebook pay me?
Yeah.
Well, without me, Facebook is nothing. And you can say, well, Chase, what are you talking about?
No, true.
Well, that famous one voice. Today it's me. Now it's me and you. Tomorrow it's another 10. Tomorrow it's another 10. Now
Yeah.
there's 100,000. Now there's 1,000,000. Now there's a 5,000,000. You start a world that says, actually, we need to redefine how this money works.
Yeah.
And you take money from huge companies and you give it to people. So it's the modern Robin Hood, really, John.
Yeah. And I take it what MyLifeData does or is doing is in order. I suppose you would aid that cause, and you'd be trying to fight for the people and the Robin Hood.
Absolutely. It's interesting. The first case, which is probably going to kick off in the early part of next year, is about the use of government data, where a government department has sold data to an industry
Right.
that is making hundreds of millions of pounds out of it.
Yeah.
And is actually, in my view, abusing people.
Yeah.
And so MyLifeData is coming down the road to say, government, you're wrong.
Yeah.
And because the government's wrong, the companies are wrong. And let's move some of that money from there back to the people.
That's amazing.
It's a fascinating story.
Yeah, what a story! What a journey, though, mate. I mean, that's one heck of a journey from being somebody who was not in data to then totally being data to get an idea. That's just, I know we both believe in a journey, but that is a journey. I love that. That's an amazing story.
But it's interesting, isn't it? I think if you believe in the end in mind.
Yeah.
So, I and I don't mind sharing this. When I left the university, I'd never, ever, ever worked in a world where I wanted to earn money for myself. I was never a driver.
Yeah.
But I decided that it was something that I needed to do. I needed a project that actually made money for me.
Yeah.
And so I set this figure of money that I wanted to earn. And lots of people laugh at me about this. And they say, well, what is it, Jakes? And I'll say, well, it's 13.9 million.
Yeah.
And they say, well, how'd you come up with that? I said, no other reason. I just picked a number.
Yeah.
And I even recognise myself.
You told me 4 years ago, whatever it was.
Yeah.
And I didn't laugh then. I don't laugh now. I know because I understand the value of that as well.
Yeah. So ever since when I made that decision, everything that I've done, deliberately or accidentally, has taken me towards where I'm going.
Yeah.
Be it the Order Daddy app and project, be it the people that I've bumped into going and working into the city. Sometimes you've got to go right to go forwards.
Yeah.
And going right won't make any sense. But if you've set the vision on where you want to be, then it will all take you there. And, probably one of the advantages of, being 48 years old is that you wake up one day and realize you haven't made any mistakes in life. You've just had opportunities to learn.
Yeah.
And I think if you can sit down with a 18-year-old school leaver and say, and they say, well, I don't know what I want to do next. And you say, just go and do something.
Yeah.
And you can see them looking at you and you say, well, if you go and work in a chip shop, and that was the first job I ever had, go and work in a chip shop. What can you learn from working in a chip shop? Well, you buy potatoes and you turn a potato into chips. And when you turn potatoes into chips and you sell them for 10 times what you bought the potato for, you've learned a lesson.
Yeah.
and how many chips can you get from a potato? So how many potatoes do I need to buy for my chips? Now, you can just go to work and you can sit there and go, I'm paid here to sell chips.
Yeah.
And that's one approach in life. Or you can actually sit there and think, do you know, I can learn something from this. And that ability to be open to learn and to think, well, how do they make money out of this? Is an incredible journey. And as you say, whether you're an Uber driver,
Yeah.
whether you work, you know, I've always wanted to work for McDonald's.
Yeah.
Always. Just on the counter in McDonald's.
Yeah.
And not because I want to serve burgers. I really want to understand the system.
Yeah.
How is it I can walk into McDonald's every time and get the same product?
Yeah.
And they haven't run out of it, and you know, they know how much it costs, and they make gazillions.
Yeah.
And that is about people, process, and technology.
And,
And
and
it's
you know what, mate? The McDonald's on that note, I mean, that's why I work in Domino's, and I'll be quite open. I love the interaction, but I'm really interested in how the model works. But
yeah,
the interesting bit with McDonald's is they're always industry leading. Always.
yeah,
If something
yeah.
happens, they're the first to change it. You know, yes, you know, they started barcoding. Who'd have ever thought 10 years ago we'd be serving ourselves at a counter, putting it in our own bags and taking it out the door? That's
Great, isn't it? It's great.
But it's what people want and what people didn't even think they needed. But McDonald's, same thing. Order yourself, sit down, get it delivered. It's just, they're always the front readers. I totally agree with you. McDonald's, I've always wanted to work there for that reason. It's amazing. It's an amazing company and amazing for that reason as well.
Yeah, and I think these things in life is what takes us on our journeys, isn't it? You know, and you know, the other journey that I'm on at the moment with Russell Slade over sport, you know, and sports data.
Yeah.
I'm doing exactly the same way. You know, Russ and I met one morning at the girls' football. My daughter plays football. I'm really crap at sport. I wouldn't know one sportsman from another. Talk to this tall guy and say, what do you think to the game? And he's very calm and says, they're doing okay. It's fine. Went home, saw my wife, said, oh, I met this nice guy at the football today. She said, oh, what's he look like? So she said, oh, that's Russell Slade. And I was like, yeah, okay. Is that what they call him? Like, yeah. She said, you know what he does? And I was like, I've no idea whatsoever.
Yeah.
She said, oh, he's a football manager. And I was like, right, okay. So I went back the next week and Russell sort of stood there and I thought, right, I need to make a bit of an effort now. So I went and stood next to him. I said, oh, you know, so I hear you're a football manager. And he went, yeah. So what's the most difficult thing about being a football manager? Bit like my, what have you done this week question.
Yeah. What have you done?
And he said, well, you know, you stand in a stadium and there's 30,000 people can all think they can do your job better than you can. And I was like, that's really interesting. I said, but they can't all be wrong, can they?
No.
And he was like, and he says afterwards, he says, I genuinely thought the first time that I met you, Jace, that, you know, the media had sent you to wind me up. You know?
I was going to say, that's the second meeting you had with him. I met him.
Yeah.
The question you wouldn't get after 10 years from a media person.
Yeah. So it was, you know, and Russ and I have now formed this company, Global Sport, and we're on this journey about the use of footballers' player data called Project Red Card, and you know, it's a multi-million, £100 million, you know, data case, and again, it's about always getting the right people and people who are interested and people, process, and technology, and you know, it's going to be an interesting journey. We're not there yet. We've got sport to deal with, and you know, the companies around sport and gaming and betting that we need to go and help understand the new world. And it's interesting. I often talk to the data world that I work in and compare it to oil, you know, and you can just see one guy one day saying, I found this stuff in the ground. It's like, right, okay, what is it? Oh, it's called oil. All right, okay. And where is it? Oh, it's deep under the sea. Right, okay. Yeah, fine. Good. Like that one. Yeah, and I want to drill it out. Sure you do. Yeah, no, that's a really good idea. Yeah. So we're going to need oil rigs. Right. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. And then we're going to need pipelines to get the oil to refineries. Refineries. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then we're going to turn it. Then we're going to turn it into petrol. Oh, how are you? Yeah. Yeah. That's a really, and then it's going to make plastic. Really? Right. Okay. And plastic is going to be used, one of the largest substances used in the world.
Mm.
Really good. Good.
Yeah.
Anyway, it's been a really good day. Thanks to chat to you.
Yeah.
And,
Thank you for the
and
conversation.
and you look at data, don't you? You look at data that's been now produced by people every day,
Yeah.
and it's taken and transported into the cloud. Well, most people haven't got a clue where is this cloud? What is the cloud?
What is it?
And then it goes to this thing called AI, artificial intelligence. And, what's that?
Yeah.
And then I open my phone up, and Facebook arrives, and that, from the seabed to the drilling platform to the refinery to the petrol station,
Yeah.
is exactly the same way as from me into my phone, up to Facebook or Google, back to me, back to my phone. It's
Yeah.
exactly the same space.
Yeah.
Only the money is probably a factor of 10 greater, and the use is
Data
probably,
compared to the oil or the other way around?
yeah, data to oil.
Wow.
Yeah. Man will produce more data in the last 7 days of this week than he has produced in the previous 100 years.
Wow. That's phenomenal.
It's absolutely incredible. And, you only have to look at elections or, everything else that's going on in our lives to understand the impact COVID, the data stuff around COVID about, actually what are the numbers and all that sort of stuff. And we've all closed our businesses and locked ourselves in our houses based on data.
Yeah.
We haven't seen 57,000 people die.
No.
We've seen the data of 57,000 people. So it's such an interesting
Oh, mate,
one.
it's phenomenal. I mean, honestly, I'm in awe. I'm in awe. And I think what we're going to need to do is we're going to come to an end in a sec. But I have got one question for you.
Yeah.
I finish all the interviews with. I mean, honestly, I'm so interested in this subject. I think it's been amazing talking to you. But if there's someone sat there, obviously you had several moments in your career. If you class it as a career now, it's obviously a lifelong journey now, rather than maybe a career you class it as. But if there was one moment that you said to yourself, right, actually, someone sat there listening, how would I crack on? What would your advice be for that person?
So when I was about 20 years old, somebody gave me a book, and the book was on the SAS.
Yeah.
Special Air Service.
Yeah.
And in this book somewhere, it said that the reason that the SAS was so successful as a fighting force is if there was one person left standing and a tank coming towards them, how they survive is to run at the tank.
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Because you can't hit a moving object and the tank's not flexible enough and mobile enough to deal with a human running at it.
Yeah.
And to me, the single learning is whenever you are in a corner, stand up and run.
Yeah.
And I go back to the failures in my life,
Yeah.
is where everything's come on top of me and I've felt I haven't run. I could have run.
Yeah.
Like the last mile of a marathon, it's like the last 100 feet of a mountain. Humans, we can do it. It's actually where our mindset is. And if our mindset is stop, we will stop. If our mindset is I need to run because my life is at risk, I can run.
Yeah.
And that to me is my single biggest learning, is when you are in the hardest spot, stand up and run at whatever you've got.
Yeah, I love that. Mate, I love that. I love that. And I've really enjoyed, like I said, look, mate, it's been a great morning. We've tried to get this on a couple of times. I'm so glad that we ended up getting it on. Jason, thank you ever so much for your time, mate. And on that note, on that golden nugget of advice, I'd like to say thank you very much, mate, and have a great day.
It's been a pleasure, John. Anytime. Good to
Yeah,
see
great.
you.
We'll catch him again, but crack on.
Cheers, mate. Thank you.
Cheers, mate. Have a good one. That was great. I really enjoyed that. That was videoed or filmed just prior to Christmas. So all the views, all the comments were made prior to the December period. Jason's just a really interesting, humble guy. I've known him for a long time. And I just really, really enjoyed listening to that podcast again. And I just get a lot from it. I mean, he's in data, totally different to me. You know, I'm a auditory visual guy. I listen to things and I take things in. I'm very outgoing. So is Jason, but he's, the data side of it is such the way of the world, and it's where the world is going. And something that, some of the projects he's involved with are just really, really fascinating. And I was just really humbled to, like I said, have time with him. And I'm finding that throughout the episodes that these people that are giving their time up, I just find them so interesting. And Jason's a really good friend of mine. Funny enough, we actually are involved with a group outside of it. And we're taking a mutual interest in Think and Grow Rich. The famous book, if you haven't read it, read it. We have many a conversation with other people in that group, and we've gone on a bit of a journey with that, which has been amazing. So thank you ever so much for listening. Jason, thanks again. And Happy New Year to you all, and crack on.
Crack on.